Wonderful.
And I'll put the agenda up and we should be all set.
All right, good evening, everyone, on this beautiful June 27th day, 2024. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2024, this meeting of the Traffic Commission will be conducted via remote participation. We will post an audio video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of the proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting on the City of Somerville's website. All right, let's go over our ground rules. Listen to the other side, focus on issues, not personalities, avoid questioning motive, and let's be polite. Item number 1, acceptance. Oh, wait, first, do we have a quorum?
Yes, I can call roll call for attendance and we can establish a quorum. Chair Lathan?
Here.
Lena Webb?
Here.
Lieutenant Reimel?
I'm here.
Assistant Chief Tierney?
Here.
And that's 4 in attendance, so we do have a quorum, and I'll note the counselor is absent, and if she joins, we'll make a note of that as well.
Wonderful. Item number 1, acceptance of the minutes from the May 23rd, 2024 Traffic Commission meetings. Can I get a motion to accept or deny these minutes, please? Lieutenant Reimel?
Motion to accept.
Elena?
Second.
Wonderful. Can I get a roll call vote to accept the item number 1, acceptance of the meetings from May 23rd, 2024?
Yes, Chair Lathan?
Yes.
Lena Webb?
Yes.
Lieutenant Reimel?
Yes.
Assistant Chief Tierney?
Yes.
And that's 4 yes, and the motion carries.
Wonderful. Item number 2, request for accessible parking space at 29 Rogers Ave. Who is here to present this item?
Sorry, I'm Zoom meeting.
So the ADA coordinator, Adrienne Pomeroy, could not attend tonight, so she asked me to share on her behalf that she reviewed this application and supports approval, and asked to put it on the agenda and share that she supports approval of this item. And it's for a resident handicap spot.
Any discussion from the committee members?
Thank God.
Yeah, hearing none, can I get a motion to accept or reject item number 2 for handicap accessible parking space at 29 Rogers Ave? Chief Tierney?
Motion to accept.
Lieutenant Reimel?
I will second that.
Wonderful. Can I get a roll call vote to accept item number 2, please?
Yes, Chair Lathan?
Yes.
Lena Webb?
Yes.
Lieutenant Reimel?
Yes.
Assistant Chief Tierney?
Yes.
And that's 4 yes, and the motion carries.
Wonderful. Moving on to item number 3, request to remove 1 resident permanent parking space in front of 45 Marshall Street and implement a new crosswalk across from Marshall Street at Mortimer Place. The crosswalk will enhance the pedestrian route for students and families walking from the Edgerly Education Center to the Winter Hill Community School. This will also provide better access to the Marshall Street playground. Who's here to present this item?
Good evening, Rebecca Wright from engineering. I made a brief presentation. I'll emphasis on brief. I know you guys have a large agenda tonight, so but I thought it would help.
Sorry, Becca. I'm just going to say for the item before you dive into your presentation that the counselor is present now too. So we have 5 members present. And welcome, counselor. And now all yours.
Okay. All right, you guys can see my screen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right, so 45 Marshall Street, we are requesting the removal of 1 residential street parking space to build a crosswalk. Here is the pedestrian route from the Edgerly to the Winter Hill Community School that our traffic engineer thought was the most viable option for pedestrians. There is currently no existing crosswalk on Marshall Street between Broadway and Pearl Street. So we were looking at options between Oakland and Evergreen for a new crosswalk. And so here are some of the existing constraints as to why the ultimate location was picked. This is Oakland at Sherman, and there are these utility poles that are very difficult to work with to make 2 crosswalks, as well as driveways and existing manholes. The second option further up the street is evergreen, more manholes, fire hydrant, trees. We always want to do our best to preserve trees. And another manhole and a utility pole at the immediate intersection that would make it difficult to build a new accessible curb ramps. So ultimately, we worked with the contractor, the city's streetscapes contractor, and thought that at Mortimer Place was the most viable constructability option, which involved the need to remove one parking space in front of 45 Marshall Street. On the other side is the bicycle lane, so we did not need to remove an additional parking space. So here again is roughly the area of the location at hand. I want to note that this was kind of an emergency fix, but if it's deemed necessary to remove it, we can always take it away after this meeting if that's the move. But we had a window of opportunity with our contractor in the beginning of June that we wanted to take advantage of, because there was advocacy from the families, and we wanted to respond to them as best we could, and didn't want to miss the opportunity this summer to build the crosswalk before the next school year. So this is the new crosswalk across Marshall Street, and additionally, they made a new enhanced the existing crosswalk across Mortimer. There was missing accessible or detectable warning panel. So now we have two ADA compliant crosswalks, one to the actual playground, which was already an existing crosswalk. We just made it more compliant, and then this new one across Marshall Street. And here's another view. What was that?
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Any discussion? Go ahead, Rebecca.
that was the end of my presentation, actually.
Questions, discussions from the committee? Hearing none. Can I get a motion to accept or eject? Eject. Is that right? No, not eject. I got it in my seat. Watched too many Tom Cruise movies last night. To accept item number 3.
Motion to eject.
Motion to eject. Right, can I get a second?
Accept, officially accept. Yes.
Yeah, great. Can I get a second? Lena?
Second.
All right. All right, can I get a vote to accept item number 3, please?
Yes, Chair Lathan,
Yes.
Lena Webb,
Yes.
Lieutenant Rymel,
That's a yes.
Assistant Chief Tierney,
Yes.
and that's for, oh, sorry, Counselor Said.
Yes.
And that's 5 yes, and the motion carries.
Thank you,
Wonderful.
guys.
Great. Moving on to item number 4, regarding the curb on the east side of Bonner Ave from 20 feet north of Washington Street to 10 feet south of the fire hydrant near the driveway from 237 Washington Street. Request to convert 140 feet of residential permit parking to meter parking. Who is here to discuss this item?
Jessica Bello, Senior Traffic Engineer with Engineering.
Welcome back.
Thank you. So the background on this is that we are implementing our Clear Corners program, which restricts parking 20 feet in advance of crosswalks along the eastern portion of Washington Street this year. And when we were reviewing the impacts that would have near Union Square on Bonner Ave specifically, part of the discussion our interdepartmental team had was related to the outreach that had been done previously as part of the Union Square Plaza and Streetscapes program, which had noted a need for additional parking near Union Square, especially as the parking lot is used for more and more events. So we decided as part of that Clear Corners initiative to restrict the parking on the east side of Bonner. And I think, Jackie, you might be able to show us that that's adjacent to the old post office building. So it's not residential right now adjacent. And, oh, perfect. So you can see where the red restrictions are. So we're just talking about that blue section there in the middle and converting that to meter parking to provide more parking options for people visiting Union Square.
Questions from the group? Hearing none. Can I get a motion to accept or reject this item? Counselor C,
Motion to accept?
can I get a second?
Second. Lena, second.
All right, can I get a vote to accept item number 4, please?
Yes, Chair Lathan,
Yes.
Lena Webb,
Yes.
Lieutenant Rymel,
Yes,
Assistant Chief Tierney,
Yes.
Counselor Said,
Yes.
and that's 5 yes, and the motion carries.
Wonderful. Item number 5, are you saying with us, Jessica, that you're all your items?
No,
Okay, see you later. Good to see you.
thank you.
Item number 5, Victoria Meat Market Loading Zone request regarding the curb on the north side of Somerville Ave from 115 feet west to 150 feet west of Beach Street and nearest 577 Somerville Ave. Request to convert 35 feet of 2-hour parking except by permit to a loading zone from 8 AM to 8 PM and resident permit parking at all other times. Who is here to discuss this item?
Through the chair, that would be me, Adam Polinsky, Senior Planner in the Mobility Division. Thank you, Jackie, for pulling up these slides. So if the commission remembers from last month, we had taken a request at this exact location to the commission last month for a full-time loading zone based on what we heard from Victoria. This request came directly from them. And we have modified that request since last month based on what we heard from the commission. So we're talking about the same piece of curb. It's about 2 parking spaces and it will, instead of a full-time loading zone, be loading from 8 AM to 8 PM. And then our proposal tonight is that will be residential permit parking at all other times, which will then allow it to turn over to other uses overnight and allow someone to park there full overnight if they wish. And so we have come with this modified recommendation based on what we heard last month.
Thank you. Counselor Seed and Lieutenant Rymel, I know you guys had concerns last time this was brought up. Any thoughts on this change?
no, I was just about to ask, was that the one we talked about that was the 24-hour request? Yes,
Yes.
I'm good. Yep.
Counselor Seed, any questions? You good?
Actually, thank you. I do have a question. So when you say at all other times, is that from 8 PM to 7:55 or just
Yeah, that's correct. Right up to
okay?
8 AM. Yeah, exactly. All days of the week. And then obviously we don't have parking is not enforced on Sundays. So
Thank you.
Further discussion? Adam, I want to thank you for bringing this back up since, this did not pass last time and really, your team making modifications and kind of going that extra step. So that's greatly appreciated. If there's no other further discussion, can I get a motion to accept or reject this particular item on item number 5? Councilor Said,
Motion to accept?
Senator Ramos,
I'll second that.
can I get a roll call vote to accept item number 5, please?
Yes, Chair Lathan,
Yes.
Lena Webb,
Yes.
Lieutenant Rymel,
Yes,
Assistant Chief Tierney,
Yes.
Counselor Said,
Yes.
and that's 5 yes, and the motion carries.
Wonderful. Moving on to item number 6. Lucky Defense Monastery School.
Hello.
Oh, did I miss it? Did I totally just butcher that? Monastery
I think
School.
you were doing good.
Oh, F45 and the common loading zone request. This is A and B. Who's here to discuss this item?
That would be me again, Chair.
Wonderful. Take it away.
I have a slide for this one as well, Jackie. You. Figure everyone likes visuals, so got another slide for you all to be able to see exactly what we're talking about on this one. So this is another loading zone request that came in from these three businesses led by the Montessori school. Very similar need, request for kind of pickup and drop off style, 20-minute maximum for commercial vehicles, 5-minute max for passenger vehicles during the day. And so similar to the Victoria Meat Market, we are looking at a couple of areas kind of, near the park-ish area that actually belongs to the housing development on the left side of the screen here, and then along the building where all of the businesses are located at 450 McGrath Highway on the right side there. Jackie and I went out and took a look at this a couple weeks ago, and felt like to accommodate the needs both of vehicles coming northbound from kind of the Prospect Hill neighborhood, as well as coming off of more likely from McGrath, that we would propose 2 loading zones here. They had requested 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. At the Montessori school. And I believe it was Come On that had requested 3 to 7 p.m. And so to encompass those times for the businesses, we chose 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And then that would revert to residential permit parking all other times. We know that this is also a residential neighborhood. And so wanted to give that overnight access when we know that residential parking is generally the most well utilized. So the request here is for about 2 spaces on each side, closest to the intersection, to accommodate these businesses' needs.
Discussion on this item? Hearing none, can I get a motion to accept or reject item number 6?
I'll make a motion to accept.
Great. GT?
second,
Wonderful. Can I get a roll call vote to accept item number 6, A and B, please? To accept.
Yes, Chair Lathan,
Yes.
Lena Webb,
Yes.
Lieutenant Rymel,
Yes.
Assistant Chief Tierney,
yes,
Counselor Said,
Yes.
and that's 5 yes and motion carries.
Wonderful. Moving on to item number 7, the Shisho Kitchen and Sweet Laundry 2-hour parking request regarding the curb on the south side of Washington Street from 175 feet west to 60 feet west of Calvin Street and nearest 376 Washington Street. Request to supersede item 2F of the July 23rd Traffic Commission meeting and instead retain the existing 2-hour parking except by permit regulations for this 115 feet length of curb. I know we did get some public requests in writing for a very written response to the particular item, so I want to thank those who responded to that. Who's here to present this item?
That would be me again, Chair.
Great.
All right, so I know the commission is very familiar with Western Washington Street at this point. We've come to you all several times regarding the changes associated with this project. It is now actively under construction. And some of the construction in front of the businesses on this block led them to request a change.
Home meeting.
So when we had spoken to them earlier, there has also been some turnover in the business ownership, I believe. So based on who we were talking to at the time, when we were first coming to the Traffic Commission, there were a lot of concerns about the parking lots on the north side of the street. And so to accommodate some higher turnover and to make sure that the spaces were being used, as we typically do for a lot of the business in the area, we end up choosing to recommend a loading zone and some metered parking. However, upon further discussion with those business owners, that they felt that the best thing for their needs was to stick with the 2-hour except by permit parking. And so we're choosing to honor that request and instead of implementing 4 meters and a 40-foot loading zone here like we had come to you all with last July. We'll instead just leave that parking shown there, about 6 spaces as 2-hour except by permit. And we're not proposing any additional changes on top of that. This is just to essentially leave what's there today when the project is complete.
Discussion on this item?
Chair, I just wanted to note that there is a business owner in the audience who has requested to offer a comment.
Is this the same business owner that wrote us the letter?
Yes.
Since we received the letter from the business owner, who's this person's want to speak?
Sorry, Chair, could you repeat that?
Who's this business owner that's wanting to speak? What's the name?
It's the owner of Sweet Laundry. Her name is Karen Thurston.
Ms. Thurston, I can give you 1 minute. We have received comment on this, so I can give you 1 minute.
I'm just gonna throw up a timer. And then I'll give her the ability to unmute. Okay, Karen, you should be able to unmute now.
Hi, thank you so much for that. And actually, I had requested to speak before I knew that you were going forward and proposing the change that we had requested. So I want to say I truly appreciate that, and I understand the complexity of the entire design. The only other item I would request, and I don't know if this can be made part of it, the response said that there was still the one handicap accessible parking spot planned for directly in front of Sweet Laundry. And I would request, if at all possible, that we also include that in the change. There's no need for a handicap accessible there. I think it would be super useful more towards Beacon Street, where there are more of the commercial places. On this block, it's really just me and She Sell, and my customers would not be able to use it. Thank you so much for the consideration.
Thank you so much. At this time, just this particular item is up for consideration. That'd be something that would need to come back before the committee to make that change. So I'm going to leave that up to the mobility department to kind of engage with the business owners on that next set requested change for another meeting. On this particular item number 7, to accept this change, any other discussion from the committee?
I just have a question. If we take away the loading zone, where did the restaurant propose to have their loading done, where it's one lane there on Washington Street?
I did not hear any specifics from the business owners that was a concern, that they had big vehicles that needed to use that area. I think they felt like leaving the 2-hour parking regulation would give them the most flexibility to use it as loading or for longer term parking or for the business owners. So we did not get into that level of detail, but loading issues did not come up in my conversations with them.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a clarifying question, Adam? Is the 2-hour permit, parking by permit existing on the left there? Is that in your diagram? Is that existing? That's current?
Yeah, that is existing, and that actually wasn't even taken to the traffic commission, because that's kind of just staying in this proposal. We're kind of building everything else around it. So that's just to show that's what's there now, and that's what's planned to stay as part of the final design. So the only thing that's changing as part of this proposal is going from what we had originally proposed, 4 meters in a loading zone, to essentially 6 of the 2-hour except by permit spaces, which is roughly what's out there today on that block.
Thank you. Yeah, I do share the concern about the importance of loading zones with those businesses on that street. And then where does that leave, you know, those big trucks that can't really squeeze in anywhere, right? So I do share that concern. Thank you, Adam.
Yeah, of course. And I'll just, reiterate to the commission, I think you're all well aware of this at this point. But since it is an active construction zone, it's hard to know how things are going to shake out. But if we do see issues, we can always revisit the topic and potentially add a loading zone back if we're seeing safety concerns, or if the business owners end up deciding that it is more helpful than hurtful. So we can always come back to the commission to make changes. But I think it'll be, right now we want to honor that request. And I think we'll just kind of have to see how it actually ends up functioning once the project's complete.
I do appreciate that you guys are really listening to business owners and their concerns and, the viability of their businesses in Somerville. I thank you again for that.
Yeah, Commissioner. I also share the same concern about the loading zone. You said it didn't really come up in conversations, but have you asked any questions about that? Since usually businesses have loading zones. And also, can you please remind me of the businesses that are right in front of these spots?
Yeah, actually, Chair, I'm wondering if Karen's still here. We might as well ask her directly, if that's okay with you, how she proposes to do her loading, if that's so. That I would recommend, if the commission wants an answer now, that may be the best way to get one in the meeting.
Karen, is she on the line?
Yeah, 1 sec. Okay, she should be able to unmute now.
We have 1 minute.
Hi, gosh, thank you so much. I was not prepared to speak much, if at all, here. So for the loading zones, for the laundromat, we don't use any of those big trucks. I have a small SUV now and may be hiring a small van to do the loading. But the loading for a laundromat is very different. It's bringing in literally loads of laundry, unpacking them, and then planning out the route for the delivery, and then loading the SUV or the van for that. It's not any of the big trucks. It takes about 45 minutes to an hour to complete that with the unloading and then the loading again. So a 20-minute loading time is not going to work for us. For Shiso Kitchen, it's a different kind of kitchen. It's not like a big commercial restaurant. It's actually a cooking school, and they don't use any of those big trucks either. It's really just the owner bringing in her, the foodstuffs that she needs for the cooking classes. It's not a full-time open restaurant. It's a small cooking school and, specialty events. Does that make sense? Do you have questions about either of those?
Thank you, Karen. All right. Any further discussions, maybe on this particular topic? Hearing none, can I get a motion to accept or reject item number 7? Ramo, still there?
I am here. I can make a motion to accept on that. If, like you said, in the future, we might have to tweak it a little bit, but I'll accept for this time.
Can I get a second? Yeah,
I'll accept it.
accept it, you sure? Okay. Can I get a,
Sorry, yes.
okay,
You got it?
got
Oh,
it.
yes. So wait, Lena, can you just repeat your?
Yes, I accept. Move to it. I second Lieutenant Reimel. My thing did not.
Can I get a roll call vote to accept item number 7, please?
Yes, Chair Lathan,
Yes.
Lena Webb. Sorry, Lena.
Yeah.
Lieutenant Reimel,
Yes.
Assistant Chief Tierney,
Yes.
Counselor Said,
Yes.
and that's 5 yes, and the motion carries.
Adam, I would like to say though, concerning the handicap parking spots, I know that they brought that up in their written response as well. Adam, can you just, when that comes up, can you just engage with the ADA coordinator? And then that's gonna come back to us, we'll see it at that time.
Yes, Chair, we can revisit that. We do feel strongly that we need an accessible space somewhere on this block. But if that location does need to change, we can huddle up with Adrian and the Disability Commission, since this recommendation did come from them, and we can revisit it if necessary.
I guess we'll make sure that the business owners know that they've been heard and will follow up with Adrian. Thank you. All right, moving on to item number 8. Central Hill Curbside Management Pilot Extension Request. Request to extend the Central Hill Curbside Management Pilot originally approved at the November 18th, 2021 Traffic Commission meeting until June 30th, 2025, consisting of the following: A, B, C, D, and E. Adam, is it you?
Actually, I believe Greg from our office will be taking this item.
Everyone, Greg Hannafin from Mobility. So I'm here representing Mobility to request the extension to the curbside management pilot that currently is in place around the Central Hill campus. So I've got some slides to share. I'll briefly give an overview of the pilot and the actions and evaluations that have been taken so far, and what Mobility plans to do to continue monitoring. 1 second. Am I okay on slides? Yep. Okay. So just a brief background to the origins of the pilot. So when the new high school was constructed and the plan for the new Central Hill campus was laid out, the result was that a majority of the on-site surface parking that was within the campus was replaced with open space and recreational space. So the city held a working group and a series of public meetings to gather input and determine the best path forward, managing the parking resources and addressing the challenges that were brought up. And this included 2 parking studies in 2017 and 2018. The result of all of these discussions was to implement a pilot parking regulations on Highland Ave, School Street, and Walnut Street that had 7 to 9 a.m. City and school permit parking only on school days, and again, Highlands School and Walnut. The map on the right here, the blue areas are those permit parking regulations on those 3 streets, the pilot regulations. The intended objectives when this pilot was put in place was to respond to the concerns that had been heard about curb management around Central Hill from residents, workforce at the high school and city hall, as well as visitors to Central Hill campus, to determine whether the city could help reduce parking conflicts by providing this time-limited parking, and to collect data on the pilot and determine how it was working, as well as that of the resident parking and other parking regulated spaces. So this is a timeline of what has happened so far. In 2021, the 1-year pilot was approved by the Traffic Commission. The signs ended up going up at the end of January, so that's when the 1 year kicked off. There was a public hearing held by Traffic Board 1 month later, and then in December 2022 and January 2023, Mobility came to the Traffic Commission And at the January 2023 Traffic Commission meeting, the commission voted to extend the pilot to June 30th of 2024. So 3 days from now. This is just a reiteration of the request that the chair shared. And it's again, those blue spaces that were shown on the map on the previous slide. So I'll now walk through some of the data collection and analysis that mobility has been doing over the past couple of years. And some of this is data that we shared at the Traffic Commission of January of last year. So the methodologies that have been used to study this pilot. First, there was an inventory of parking capacity done within the pilot zone and surrounding streets. And I'll on the next slide show a map of that study area. So 4 times between in 2022 and 2023, mobility staff walked this study area every half hour between 6 and 9:30 a.m. and counted the parked vehicles. So this is the study area. So everything highlighted in that orangish color were the streets, the blocks that we walked and inventoried the amount of vehicles parked, as well as the parking capacity. It's just a summary of the key findings from these observations. So we found that the pilot regulations are being utilized as intended. The utilization of the Somerville Public Schools staff designated parking spaces peaked between 89 to 96% of capacity, which means that these spaces are being used up by school and city workforce, which is what they're intended to be used for. We also found that there is resident parking available overnight, which was a concern about designating some of these spaces for the pilot. Before 6:30 a.m., the highest resident parking utilization that was observed over the 4 different observation periods was 79%. And this doesn't include the pilot regulated spaces. So these are just for the resident parking and the 2-hour except by permit for all day long. We observed parking spaces being available on all streets that were within the study area, including Highland School, Walnut, and Medford streets. So this is a summary of the data for the Somerville Public School staff parking utilization, and this includes the high school concourse, which is school only, the Homans lot, which is also, I believe, school and city only, and then the 7 to 9 a.m. pilot spaces that are city and school staff only from 7 to 9. And what we found is that early in the morning, so before 7 a.m., utilization of these spaces is relatively low, meaning we are not seeing a high number of people that are parking illegally here through the whole day. But as school workforce starts to come in around 7, those spaces start to get filled up. And by 8:30, 9 a.m., most of the spaces are full.
Nope.
This is a similar table for resident parking utilization, and this includes the resident parking permit and 2-hour except by permit spaces. Again, the 6 to 6:30, the early morning time period, the highest utilization we saw was 79%. So between 20 to 30% of spaces in the study area were available overnight. As the morning goes on, the parking utilization does start to get a little bit higher as teachers and city staff and students are coming and parking in the neighborhood But for the most part, between 15 to 20% of parking capacity, 15 to 20% of parking capacity is still available throughout most of the morning. Even at most of the peak times. In 2022, we also did two studies with the parking control officers where they were monitoring compliance on the pilot regulated spaces on Highland Ave in the morning between 7 and 7:40 a.m. And what they found in their first study period in the winter and spring of 2022 was that on a median, so a typical day, there were 3 open parking spaces in the pilot area between 7:40 a.m. and only 1 illegally parked vehicle that was ticketed. And then when this same evaluation was done in the fall again, similarly, there were 3 open parking spaces and a half an illegally parked vehicle, which again is a median. So it could be, one day 0, one day 1, but the trend was that as time went on, and people got more used to the pilot, there were fewer people parked illegally in the fall than there were in the spring. So in addition to this pilot, the city has also been looking at other ways that we can, in general, reduce parking demand and encourage people to get to Central Hill campus by ways other than driving. We currently have a workforce transit pass program for city and school staff that provides free MBTA bus and subway passes, and that is going to continue. There's also a student transit pass program that provides free MBTA passes for all grades 7 through 12 students between September and June, so during the school year. And the city also provides a free annual Blue Bikes membership to all city and school staff. With the request to extend this pilot for 1 year, we will continue to collect data as we have been and study how the pilot is working. And the reason why we think that it's appropriate to request a 1-year extension is because the transportation environment around Central Hill continues to change. Green Line extension is now open, has been open for over a year. Community Path also approaching or over a year being open. We have those workforce transit pass programs that I shared, as well as ongoing construction related impacts in the area that we'll want to keep monitoring and see how that impacts parking utilization over the next year. So with that, I will conclude my slides and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Greg. I'm glad that you had that ending slide. That was my first question, why the request for an extension of pilot that seems to have some clear data, but it sounds like from the new transportation areas that you spoke about, the Green Line, Community Path, the pass system. I'm understanding that we're waiting to see how those kind of play out if your data changes in any way.
Yeah, so we will we'll continue to do the evaluations, and if we're finding, over the next year that things have changed dramatically because of changing conditions to either the parking environment or the way people are traveling, then we can reevaluate at that time.
Discussion on this topic?
I have some questions if we.
Yeah, please go ahead. I go next.
If I could share my screen, I just maybe bring up one of my points. Can you see the map? Is that what's showing?
I was on mute. Now you should be able to share your screen.
Okay, let me try again.
Yeah.
So whoops. If you could see the part of the concourse here, and you could see even in the maps that there's parking being utilized along here. We've been receiving complaints about cars and observed cars parking there, as you see even on the Google map. You see a van parked there. It's difficult for us to be able to make that turn with the ladder trucks when there's cars parked there. So there is a sign saying there's a fire lane along that area, but maybe the signage isn't good enough, and whether that fire lane is documented on both sides, because there's been cases of cars parked along both sides of that entrance to the concourse and where you see the van, and it makes it impassable to fire apparatus. We did agree to have the fire lanes for parking, to be used for parking, as long as that was remained clear. But where that section's bumped out, we've been observing parking there, and we want to know if that's going to be addressed.
Looks like that the enforcement issue with ticketing, is that correct, traffic and parking?
Through the chair, we can certainly make sure that I'll send an officer up there to make sure that's being cleared, and we'll double check the signage to make sure that it's properly displayed.
Thank you.
Thanks, Suzanne.
My question is, why is it a 1-year extension?
So just because the environment around Central Hill, thinking about the construction that is happening on Highland Ave, the repaving right now, looking forward, there could be changes around City Hall and the high school. So we just want to give the flexibility to continue to evaluate this. And if we're finding over the next year that data looks much different than what we've seen so far, we have the ability to tweak the pilot or reevaluate. So I think it's just feeling like we want to continue to study this.
Yeah, sorry, I was not very articulate like with my question. I guess why 1 year, not 6 months, for example? Plus we know that the construction there will probably take longer if there's any delays. Like, let's say in 6 months we have more data. Would mobility consider making any changes, or do we have to commit to a year from now?
I think that our recommendation is a year. It will allow us to do another collection in the fall of 2024 and then in the spring of 2025 to be prepared to come before the commission in the spring of next year. So that's our recommendation, to just have more data points to make a decision off of.
Yeah, hi. I voted in the 2021 pilot that came before us. So I was on that initial vote in 2021 about this pilot in 2021. And the objection came from people who were objecting to the fact that we were trying to reserve spaces for teachers who need to get to their classrooms and who were coming upon that area and not having a place to park. And it was causing a lot of stress. And so the first time I heard about this, I was listening to the voices of the teachers and the school staff versus people who were concerned about on-street Highland parking in general. And so I voted at that time because I thought it's the right thing to do to reserve those spaces for those people that are, serving the kids and need to get to their classroom and whatnot. And so from that, I think we've continually extended that pilot. And so I would vote to extend it once more.
Further discussion? Hearing none, can we get a motion to accept or reject item number 8, please? Lena,
Motion to accept.
Chief Lieutenant, Deputy Chief Cooney,
Second,
can I get a roll call vote to accept item number 8, please?
Hello?
Ye-
Hello?
We hear you.
Yes, Chair Lathan,
Because back in 2021, I had abstained for this vote, I need to abstain from this one as well.
okay. Lena Webb,
Yes.
Lieutenant Rymel,
Yes.
Assistant Chief Tierney,
yes.
Counselor Said,
Yes.
and that's 4 yes and 1 abstain, and the motion carries.
Wonderful. I just wanted to make a comment. I did recognize Jonathan was in the chat asking a question about 15-minute parking for the library. That wasn't really part of this discussion. But Greg, I just wanted to make you aware of that constituent's question about 15-minute parking for library, and you guys can follow up as you see fit with that.
Thank you.
Wonderful. All righty, my friends. Seems like that is it. Can I get a motion to adjourn this wonderful meeting? Council seat.
Motion to adjourn?
Lieutenant Brimel,
I'll second that.
your battery lasted. All right, can I get a roll call vote to adjourn this meeting?
Yes, Chair Lathan,
Yes.
Lena Webb,
Yes.
Lieutenant Rymel,
Yes.
Assistant Chief Tierney,
Yes.
Counselor Said,
Yes.
and that's 5 yes, and the motion carries.
All right, Ruby Tunes, Cool Beans. Hope you guys have a great evening, and hope you enjoy the fireworks tonight.
Fireworks, yeah.
Good night.
Bye, guys.